Welcome back to a new video in this series about creating the XP rate changer. So today we'll just create the server script so it's set up and we are ready to move on to the client in the next parts. So let's get started. First off, we need to have a table for all the players. So players equals empty table again, like we always do. List of players. Then we want to go ahead and create our new functions. So create function here. And here we want to say players.add. And then we want to inside here, let me see here. Yes, okay, let's make it capital A here. What we want to store this time around, we want to store the GUID of the player and the XP selected index. So this index will be when you click on a button. Let's say we click on number 2, so that's the XP rate 10. So that means this index will then look up into this table and see, okay, we want number 2. Number 2 is 10. Then we use that one for the XP rate of that player. So now here we want to say players, if I could spell. And here you want to write the GUID because we want to store a player, a new player, with this GUID as the ID, and then set equals to table. And here we say XP selected index equals XP selected index. And that's all for the add-in of the player into the list. Next thing we want to do, so let me just give this a comment. Add in the player into the list. Next, we want to create our new function for AIO. So that would be function, then handlers dot change selected XP. And here, what we want to do here is that we want to take the player. Or what we can do is we could actually just take the GUID instead, and then we can say play. And here we want to say selected XP index. Now you can do end. Now we have a function. The reason we write handlers start here is that, like we did here, basically all our handler is that this is basically just a table. So what you're doing here is you are saying handlers, and then we are adding change selected XP into this location. So now this function is registered together with this handler. That way we can call the function. So in here, what you want to write first is if statement, if players. And then in here, we want to look for the player with the GUID of, and the GUID is equals to nil. So if the player doesn't exist in the list, we want to first add him. So players GUID dot add, and here we want to put the GUID, my bad again, and comma, and then the selected XP index. And then we could say else, if the player does exist, we want to just go in and change the player in the list. Or we want to change the XP selected in the list. So that would be selected XP selected index equals to XP selected index. Now we are done with this part of the script actually, or this function. that's all we need to do to change the player's selected experience index. Next, we want to go under Eluna, and we want to register three player events. One for on login, one for on command, so when the player writes a command, and the third one is when the player receives experience. So let's head under Eluna. Here, say register player event. We'll click on it here. And what we want to do is the login first. So it's free. And the argument is event and comma player. So down at the bottom here, register player event. And here you want to write free for the command or for the event ID. And then we want to have a function here. Let's call this on player login. And let's real quick create this function on player login event comma player. And that's the first one. Now let's see here. Where is the next one? Was it? Yeah, that's the 12th. So this is the player event on give experience. It's 12. So let's do that. Register player event 12, comma on player gain XP. Let's just call it that. And then we again create a function called that. And then here we want to write all the arguments. Just to make this faster, I will copy them here. And I will paste them into here. So now I know that it's in the correct order. And the last one is we want to check if the player has written any commands. So on player enter command, and then we want to find it, which is number 42. Copy the number, so that's 42. Register the event like we do with the others. Here, comma on player enter command. Now let's check what the arguments are. These are event player comma command comma chat handler. Copy these. Go back, paste them here. And I see I missed the E. Yeah, that's all right. So now we actually have everything now ready just to write the last things here. So let's do that. So when the player joins the server or logs in, sorry, you would want to add the player. So players, and then you would say yeah, you would add the player. Oh no, give me a second here. No, because we already add the player here, so we actually don't want to add the player here. There's no reason to have the player if they don't select it, don't select any custom experience boost, you could say, or rate. So there's no reason to do that. We'll keep this here because we want to send the config file to the user, or we could do that, but I'll just do the rest here and then we can see how much time I have left. So under player enter command, we want to check if the player has entered the correct command. If command, so this is the argument, this is the command the player wrote, equals, and then let's say XP change. And you don't need the dot here because a command is automatically registered with a dot, so it knows that. So here you go down here, and now what we want to do is actually send this handle So now we want to send the command, or we want to send to the client that he should show the window with the GUI, the add-on window, when he writes this code. So here you want to always, and this is so important, you want to send the player. Reason you want to send the player is because when you send something from the server to the client, AIO needs to know which player it should send it to. So you always need to have player at the start. Next is the handler name. And we can do our config data.config.handle name, because we have our handle name here. Next, I know we will call this next function showFrame. So showFrame is the function it should call on the add-on side. And that's everything here. Then we want to return false. You need to return here when you enter a command, just so you know why. That's everything for the command. Next, on player gain experience. Now, what we're gonna do here is that we want to actually do a certain thing here. So that would be when the player receives experience, we want to first write local GUID, just to have the GUID of the player stored. So get GUID low. Now we have the GUID in a value or variable. Now we check again if the players, and using the GUID as the identifier or index, we check if that's equals nil. Then, so when the player receives experience, it goes through here. If it's nil, then we don't want to modify anything. So that means that that player hasn't selected a custom rate, so we don't want to modify anything. So we will just say return, and we want to return the amount. Amount here is the amount of experience the player would gain here. So we just want to return the amount. We don't want to change it. Then, well, if this goes over here and you see it's not nil, then it will continue down here. What we want to do here is get selected XP. This is just a variable for us to store it in. And then we say config data.config.xp options. And then in here, you want to say players. And in here, you say the GUID of the player, comma, XP selected index, to get the index of it. So now, let's say all player here has selected 2, then it goes into the table of XP options and select 10. So you can see here number 2. Now, we want to actually give this new calculate, or what it's called, multiply the experience that the user have selected. We want to multiply that with the player's amount of experience. So you would do like this. So new cal, who I can't fucking spell today, calculated XP equals amount times get selected experience. This is 10, so we times the amount with 10. So if this is 100 experience times 10, then this one will have 1,000 experience. And the last thing we do here is basically just return new calculated experience. We just wrote this code for the experience change. Now the last thing we want to do with the unlogin is that we want to say we want to send the config file to the player's UI or the player's add-on. So we want to write AIO.handle again. This is to send a command. And like before, we always want to send the player as the first argument, then the config data dot config dot handle name, because we need the handle name here. And over on our add-on side, we want the function called receive config. And then you can say comma again. And now this is where you can send all the arguments you want. So what I want to send to the player, their add-on, we want to send the config data dot config. So now we send this table to the player. And that is basically everything for today. You are now sending the config without a problem to the player now. So this has been a long one, but I will see you in the next video, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Please consider leaving a like and a subscribe. See you on the next one.